The essence of Towards a Greater Nigeria is predicated on change. Change for a better society, a better economy, a better people, a better citizenry, and of course, a better nation. Let's join hands together to ensure we achieve our dream for a better Nigeria. Thank you for all the support and encouragement. Towards a Greater Nigeria continues to propagate the cause for change. Join us every Thursday, 5:30 p.m.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
NTAE brings you the best of entertainment.
I thought I was being sarcastic.
I went on to do other productions.
Everything music. President Buhari in Paris for the One Planet Summit beginning today.
Incessant farmers and herders conflict. Vice President Oshibajo commences national consultations on the way out.
New national chairman of PDP assumes office, extends hands of fellowship to aggrieved members.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we take on the second part of our conversation on the notice of force majeure issued by electricity distribution companies, also known as DISCOs.
Now, the issuance of a notice of a force majeure to the Bureau for Public Enterprises by the Electricity Distribution Company as a result of the directive issued by the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, following the challenges with the privatization of the power sector and matters arising, was the crux of our discussion on Good Morning Nigeria yesterday.
That's right, Rhoda. Now, the panel that we had were 5 of them, and you had representatives of the GENCOs, that's the generation components. Yeah. You also had DISCOs represented here, and then a former chairman of the Regulatory Commission, that's Electricity Regulatory Commission, plus, of course, a project manager who came in from the Bureau of Public Enterprises. And in Lagos also, we had an electricity law expert.
Some of them are of the view that the declaration of the force majeure is long overdue, while others are of the opinion that the time is not ripe for the implementation of such policy.
Well, the proponents of the declaration of eligible customers regulation by the Honorable Minister of Power, Works and Housing argued that, of course, the new policy will help to liberalize the market and then ultimately create more employment opportunities, as those who depend on power, sourcing it directly from GENCOs, will now have the opportunity of boosting their businesses and therefore increasing their revenues.
Well, those who oppose the policy submitted that allowing it to be sustained will be counterproductive, adding that Electricity Power Reform Act is not productive and cannot drive the sector.
All right, so one of the issues that came out of the conversation, of course, has to do with the fact that there are challenges with the Electricity Sector Reform Act itself, which first came into force in year 2005. Plus, going forward, the privatization exercise which then brought about the GENCOs and DISCOs, and the TCN, of course, is still under the control of the federal government. So what is required to be done with regard to the problematic provisions still in the Act? And then what also needs to be done in terms of the relationship between the regulator of the industry, that's to say of the power sector now, and the various operators, including, of course, the policy adjunct of the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing.
Well, another question is, what chain effect would this have on the sector? Why is DISCOs paying only 20% of electricity being supplied to them by GENCOs?
All right, now that's one of the issues that we're talking about yesterday. They were saying that GENCOs are arguing that they're not getting the full payment for the less power that they supply to the DISCOs, and in fact there are also issues of load rejection. But as we indicated, this is the second part of our conversation. We are coming back to it. The notice of force majeure, to say that the DISCOs are indicating that they might not be able to fulfill the obligations that they entered into at the time of privatization in 2013. All right, so those are the issues we'll be taking up in our second part of the discussion today on Good Morning Nigeria. My name is Kingsley Osadolo, and the program is reaching you as always live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. And
I'm Rhoda Anonam. Thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria today. As you know, we have our companion segments on the program. That's the newspaper review. We've got business, we've got sports, we've got entertainments and foreign news. All of that coming your way this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. But as always, the news comes first, and Jibono is our guide.
Hello, Rhoda, and good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari is in Paris, France, ahead of the One Planet Summit beginning today. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that over 50 other world leaders are expected at the summit.
Always paid attention to things that have to do with the climate. When there was a conference of parties, COP21, in Paris 2 years ago, he was there. Last year at Marrakesh in Morocco, he was there. So climate issues have always been very important to him.
And back in Nigeria, a series of national consultations between the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and all relevant groups in the farmers' herders' crisis are ongoing to find a lasting solution to the crisis. The meetings arise from the Vice President's visit to Adamawa State on the 5th of December 2017 in the wake of the communal clashes in the area. The first in the series held at the presidential villa Abuja and had in attendance the Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, the Lamido of Adamawa, Muhammadu Barakindo Aliyu Mustafa, elder statesman Malam Ahmed Joda, and other leaders of the Fulani community. Subsequent meetings would focus on other interest groups. The meeting unequivocally condemned the acts of violence that have occurred, especially the killing of children and women, and highlighted the need for law enforcement and other government agencies to dutifully and objectively perform their constitutional roles. The Vice President assured the delegation of the federal government's resolve and commitment to the entrenchment of lasting peace in all communities across the country and the resolution of all legitimate grievances. Following campaigns by some Nigerians for the scrapping of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, Sars, in the Nigeria police on allegation of harassment and extrajudicial killing, concerned Nigerians are rather calling for the reform of Sars in a bid to discharge its duties using the rule of law. The rally, which held in Abuja and other cities, appealed to the Inspector General of Police not to dismantle Sars but restructure it, as it has reduced robbery and kidnapping to its barest minimum.
Sars, many young people who have been hand robbers have turned today into craft, doing something by their handworks. The relevant authorities should, as a matter of urgency, set up internal mechanism on how to address the perceived anomalies within the fold of the Sars.
The federal government says the Nigerian army must look ahead with a view to sustaining a democratic culture that will stand the test of time. President Buhari said this in a message to the opening ceremony of the 2017 Chief of Army Staff Conference holding in Ibadan, Oyo State.
Develop new strategies that will address the current security challenges facing the country.
The theme for the Chief of Army Staff's Annual Conference 2017, the appraising the Nigerian Army's operational efficiency in containing contemporary national security challenges, was carefully selected in pursuit of one of Mr. President's cardinal objectives of enhancing national security.
The federal government has flagged off the full consultations on the draft 2018 to 2020 document for the promotion and protection of human rights in Nigeria. This was at an event to commemorate the 2017 International Human Rights Day organized by the National Human Rights Commission in Abuja.
In order to ensure that the process of monitoring human rights is our country is effective, government will take steps to strengthen its support for these bodies and institutions who directly deal with human rights, and also create opportunities for wider public awareness.
As we are all aware, the day is a constant reminder of our humanness, our dignity, our freedom, our liberty, and of course, extension of that to others.
The new chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Uche Secondus, has extended an olive branch to aggrieved party members after the just concluded National Convention to join him in rebuilding the party. He stated this while formally taking over the leadership of the party from the chairman of the dissolved Caretaker Committee, Senator Ahmed Makarfi.
We promise you to rebuild our party, to reposition our party, and to regain the lost ground. That will start from today.
As the Nigerian Union of Pensioners marks the Pensioners' Day in Abuja, members have urged the federal government to consider 11th December of every year as a national day in honor of the senior citizens who have served the country diligently.
To dig deep into the total indebtedness of pensions.
Every worker is a potential pensioner, and that's why you can see that at every forum, when we discuss the issue of welfare of workers, we also take side by side the welfare of pensioners.
Well, that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Rhoda and Kingsley after this break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem promptly through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way.
Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Organized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime, we bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Is that young man working, or is he carrying a spade, digging the road and making it worse?
Young man, get off the way, let me pass.
God bless me first.
Can Jeroboam and his homies make a meaningful income from gambling?
During recession, yeah, this is what I used to pay my school fees.
I won't play. I won't win the money.
That's okay. Pick up the dice and roll up your destiny.
Ah!
Wow.
Please now. Maybe my money or not profit money from Kobe.
Get rich quick. Another rib-cracking episode of Professor John Bull exposes the downside of some of the things we do to get rich quick. Smart in our own eyes, dumb in the real sense. Keep a date with us and laugh like never before.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
The largest data network, Glow Unlimited.
Helen! Your kitchen gets 10 out of 10. Thank you. This also gets a 10. Should we see the toilet now? Sure. This gets just 1.
It is clean.
But not perfect 10.
Better than my detergent and bleach? Impossible.
Challenge? Try the new Apic 10X.
Compared to bleach and detergent, Apic sticker formulation removes yellow stains times better, giving you a sparkling clean toilet.
Wow.
Now you also take that
Apic 10X challenge.
Also available in 200 ml pack.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. Every day, 16,000 children under the ages of 5 and thousands of adults die from infectious diseases. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily. In unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilet, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 Cap Full for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid, to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol Sure. Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Welcome back. It's Good Morning Nigeria and we're live on the NTA. Now let's bring you up to date in the world of business as the ease of doing business attracts French investors. Finance Minister further reiterates government's commitment to fund infrastructure. Plus, Nigerian Stock Exchange opens the week in red. We'll get more details now from Kolo Muhammad.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us on Business News. The ease of doing business environment, which recently moved Nigeria to the mid-table respectability in the global market and business competitiveness, has attracted French businessmen. The team, led by Philippe Lebourn, were at the Ministry of Finance to register their willingness to invest in the country. Finance Minister Kemi Adeosun reiterated government's commitment to funding infrastructure so as to reduce the cost of doing business further, especially in the manufacturing sector. She further assured the French delegation of government's readiness to partner credible business proposals for the overall good of the country and the citizens.
Come at a very wonderful time. As you have indicated, Nigeria is on a path to recovery. But it's a new type of Nigerian economy that we're trying to build. It's not as dependent on oil as we have been in the past. We are trying to diversify our sources of revenue. We're trying to improve our tax collection rate because we believe that a sustainable flow of income is needed to fund the essential services and infrastructure that will grow the Nigerian economy.
The federal government is currently working on a range of reforms, including foreign exchange, friendly tax GDP ratio, and voluntary income and asset declaration reforms, all geared towards ensuring a business-friendly Nigeria. And the value of Nigeria's total imports in the third quarter of 2017 stood at 2.348 trillion naira, 10.51% lower than the second quarter of the year. Data released by the National Bureau of Statistics show that the value of imported agricultural goods was 0.05% higher than the previous quarter. Raw materials, solid minerals, and energy goods also recorded declines. However, manufactured import goods value was 4.08% higher. Total export value stood at 3.573 trillion in the third quarter, representing an increase of 13.19% over the second quarter, driven by crude that rose by 18.4% against the second quarter. Raw materials and solid minerals exports were other risers, while agricultural goods and manufactured goods exports declined in the quarter. And finally, the Nigerian Stock Exchange All-Share Index maintained its downward trend as it opened the week on a bearish note, dipping by 0.88%. Let's now bring you a graphic summary of all the latest closing figures. That's business news. Good Morning Nigeria continues right after now. Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much, Kolo Mohammed, for the business package. Next for us, we'll go to the front pages of today's newspapers to check out the headlines.
Bayo Toyebi, our newspaper reviewer, is in the studio. Bayo, good morning.
Good morning, Rhoda. Good morning, Kinsley, and good morning, Nigeria.
Bayo, morning, and welcome. There are, of course, stories that are common to the front pages of today's newspapers. We have stories on the decision by the Court of Appeal Lagos Division on the process trial of the serving judicial officers, in particular judges. We also have stories on the pro and anti-Sars protests in different cities across the Federation.
And another story that's also trending on the papers too is that the release of 750 billion naira for the capital project. So let's begin with that, and that's on the leadership. The leadership is that's the list story for the leadership this morning, and it says 2017 budget. Federal government releases another 750 billion naira capital vote this week, with a rider to issue new import quota for sugar refineries, target additional 1.129 megawatt electricity in 2018, and our support for creative industry paying off, says Lai Mohammed. That's the lead story for the leadership this morning. And let's see another story that's also trending. That's on the Punch. It's the lead story from the Punch. It says, PDP Jonathan leads reconciliation team. Wike Secondus visits George. That's on page 7 of the Punch, with the rider there. Rivers governor asked to apologize to Southwest. That's the lead story for the Punch. Right, Kingsley?
Well, let's take a look at this day newspaper. The This day leads with the story from the Court of Appeal. In landmark ruling, Appeal Court says EFCC lacks powers to prosecute judges. And it has 3 riders there. It says it strikes out, that's the Court of Appeal, strikes out charge against Justice Nganjiwa, and commission, that's the EFCC, to appeal, says judgment is, quote, ridiculous, unquote. And then the federal government explains why owners of recovered assets have not been charged. That's the lead story for this day. And on the front page of the Daily Sun, its lead is as follows. Anti- and pro-Sars protests rock Abuja, Rivers, and Lagos. Will investigate and sanction indicted officers. That's according to the police. Details of the story can be found excuse me, on pages 4 and 5. And the story on corruption is also there on the front page of the Sun newspaper. And the story is in greater detail on pages 3 and 11. It says Buhari's anti-graft war method archaic. That's according to Bishop Kuka. But there's a writer to that headline. It says why corrupt people are walking free. And that's attributed to Vice President Yemi Osinbajo.
Well, let's start with the story about the Court of Appeal judgment. The Court of Appeal has ruled that the economic and financial crime can neither investigate nor prosecute a serving judicial officer. This was the lead judgment, which was anchored on the decision on the principle of separation of powers. The court ruled that for a serving judicial officer could only be prosecuted for an offense committed in the discharge of their duties only after they have been tried by the National Judicial Council and dismissed and retired. While he is serving, the EFCC or any prosecuting agency cannot, because of the principle of separation of powers. However, they also said that a serving judicial officer could be prosecuted for offenses such as murder or stealing if such were committed outside the discharge of the official duties. The Supreme Court already, if the EFCC appeals, the Supreme Court will now have to preside over this for the final decision. However, the Economic and Financial Crime has indicated that they will appeal the judgment. A spokesman for the EFCC described the ruling as a dangerous precedent. He said it has no basis in law and that criminal trials take precedence over administrative procedure. And the EFCC says that the appeal court wants to confer immunity on public officers. The other story about corruption, which Kingsley read, is the question is, can alleged looters be charged to court? There was a seminar where the vice president was presented, and he indicated that it's becoming difficult to charge alleged looters for stolen assets. And this is based on advice they have got from 3-pronged directions: independent sources, anti-corruption committee, and special panels on recovery of assets. They advise that it's difficult to pursue looters of recovery of assets. However, the government says they are looking at another direction completely, looking at the area of prevention and making corrupt practices most difficult. The other story is about Sars that has dominated the stories. You recall that a civil society group had on the social media started a campaign with #EndSARS. And yesterday, they actually started a campaign at the Unity Fountain in Abuja, and they are calling for Sars to be scrapped. In fact, they gave government a 21-day ultimatum that if it is not scrapped, they will take other measures. However, at the same time, another group of social group also went to the police headquarters. They were received by DIG in charge of operation, Joshak Habila, and he actually said to them that if there are allegations against officers about Sars, it will be investigated. Those found wanting will be thrown out. But however, in Anambra State, in Oka, people came over from various local government and they were demonstrating, and the placards they carried were reading, removing SARS is invitation to kidnapping and robbery. We want crime-free Xmas and New Year, so leave SARS alone, let SARS be. You also recollect that in Rivers State, a top government official had accused SARS of being responsible for some crime there. There were also demonstrations in Port Harcourt, and some of the placards and the protesters were saying that, give us more SARS. Before the advent of SARS, there was no day that people were not killed, robbery were not committed, and kidnapping was not rampant. So SARS came into being about 40 years ago, and the police has made sure that that was the instrument they were using to fight very violent crime. There have been complaints about human rights violations, and some persons have come forward to say their relations have been killed. The police says they are to investigate. But the dilemma now is, do you throw away SARS or throw away the SARS baby with the bathwater?
Right. Just to return to the story on the Court of Appeal,
yes,
ruling on the powers of the EFCC to prosecute serving judges. Well, the full judgment has not been published. These are reports, and with, of course, respect to our colleagues in the media. So one cannot make, any, as it were, conclusive comments on the ruling. But it's, from what has been reported, is potentially problematic, as you have indicated, because if you recall, even for governors who have immunity under the Constitution, immunity from prosecution, there was an earlier Court of Appeal decision that held that a serving governor could be investigated.
Yes.
So what then now prevents EFCC from investigating a judicial officer or a judge who doesn't have constitutional immunity? That's one leg. Second leg, as you also very well know, but the reports indicated that, okay, for you to proceed with the prosecution, there has to be a condition precedent. Namely, go through that, let the NJC take its administrative procedures, and whatever it then comes up with could then form part of the case file, if you like, which the EFCC will use. So on that score, it would appear that, all right, fine, this is not to say, look, we are killing the war on corruption. But by the other point, too, as you very well know, in the public service, no public service authority using administrative procedure can convict, as it were, a public official of a criminal offense. That is the responsibility of the courts.
And that is the argument that the EFCC is raising, that administrative procedure cannot take precedent over criminal trials.
That's right.
Baila, let's talk about the 750 billion capital vote that was released this week.
Well, the 750 million capital component is the second release. It will be released this week. Okay. It will add to the 450 that was released earlier on. It will come to about 1.2 billion, 1.2 trillion. And that is about 50% of the current budget, the capital budget. And you recall that in the process of rolling over the 2017 budget to 2018, the Ministry of Budget and National Planning and the Minister of Finance had proposed that they intend to roll over 50% of it. And they have already accomplished 50% release of the budget by the end of this week, if the 750 is released. However, nobody knows what percentage of the recurrent expenditure has so far been released. Don't forget that there are bold measures, both by the executive and the legislature, to ensure that the budget 2018 goes back to the January to December budget.
All right, Bayo, let's thank you very much. Let's quickly take a look at other stories trending on the papers. Let's go quickly to the Punch. On the Punch, just above the nameplate, it says Oshibajo meets Sanusi, Northern Monarchs over Adamawa crisis. And court rules on Sarake's acquittal by CCT today. Ikoyi whistleblower to get 421 million naira payment this week. And the leadership, let's quickly move to the leadership. On the leadership, just below the nameplate, it says Nigeria lost $32 billion to corruption under Jonathan. That's a statement that credited to the United Kingdom. And finally, just beside the picture story there, PDP won't be distracted by APC's propaganda, says Secondus. Those are stories, all the stories also trending on the leadership and the Punch this morning.
Okay,
let's take $2 billion.
Bayo, let me just take a few headlines and then you get a final comment from you, from the Daily Sun. And then also this day, there's an earpiece there beside the nameplate of Daily Sun. And it says, Copyright Commission harasses the Sun over page 3 girl. Copyright Commission harasses the Sun over page 3 girl. You can go inside to see what the picture is like or what the pictures have been like in the past. No Northerner can beat president in the North. That's according to the presidency. Details of that story can be found on page 40. And then below the photograph there, there's a story that's in reverse lettering. It says, Council of Obas threatened to depose Olubadan. That story is embedded on page 43 of the Sun. And then to return to this day newspaper, the another headline that this time is on politics. 2019 ticket. APC should not mimic PDP. Tinubu replies Okorocha. All right.
Well, let's start with the political note. You will recall that Governor Richard Okorocha had indicated that the APC governors want President Buhari to be their candidate. And that is what the APC leader is referring to. However, the whistleblower, I remember, of the Ikoyi loot, he is to get 421 million naira this week. I don't know if that is taxable.
Well, it should be. But I'm also wondering, considering the time lag between when he blew the whistle and the money was discovered and when it's being paid, he should also have some interest.
Thank you very much, Bayo, for being with us this morning. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll continue on the conversation that we started yesterday on the first measure in the power sector. We'll be back in just a moment.
The Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture, the Made in Nigeria campaign. In the midst of unprecedented multiple challenges, our great country Nigeria, as Africa's largest economy, is surely marching on to a new era of all-round prosperity, especially through re-engineered and diversified economy, powerfully driven by the change agenda of President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR.
We will patronize local entrepreneurs. We will promote the manufacturing powerhouses. Our objective is to make Nigeria a new manufacturing hub.
It is not time to complain. It is time to join the campaign. It is time for economic recovery, growth and diversification of our economy by Made in Nigeria.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Hold it! Me! I don't come out my hand from oil bunkering.
General, what you gonna yarn? What did the yarn say? I don't understand though.
Because they spoil our water and our environment. And they cause our people serious harm. Militants say, you know good. Me! I not do against Sam. Because why? Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
If you've just joined us, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA, and this morning we're continuing, that's a part 2 of the conversation that we started yesterday on the first measure in the power sector. But then to kickstart our discussion this morning, let's take an excerpt from yesterday's discussion.
Even if the force majeure crystallizes, this event is not a force majeure event. It's a regulatory event. new regulations that may impact on your financing. It's an operational issue that the regulator can deal with. It's not a contractual issue with the BP. BP has guaranteed you. BP's job as government is to put pressure on NEC to ensure that all those practical regulatory issues that will impinge on viability of the industry is not dealt with. If NEC says no, BPE will lose these guys and resell to another person who is prepared to play in a regulated market.
If you kill discos rightly or wrongly, deliberately or otherwise, you probably will have succeeded in killing the entire Nigerian economy. That's something people are not really saying, because the Nigerian banks are hugely exposed to these discos. And the discos, I think, should have been allowed to run smoothly. If the regulator had been efficient, if the regulator had been independent, the regulator would have advised the government that, hey, the time is not ripe for you to trigger the eligible customer provision, even at a time when certain things have not been put in place. I don't know who have been consulted before the declaration.
So we need to be honest, we need to be sincere, we should stop playing politics with power. What we are doing here today in this country, in this sector, and I can say this with all sense of humility, what we are doing here is we are simply playing politics with power. We don't want there to be power. If we want power, let us do what will be right. Because once you take those ones away, what they are planning to do, you will have a very high tariff for the residential customers. A particular disco, 67% of their revenue is from those eligible customers that we're talking about.
The Act makes provision that before the privatization, there are 3 classes of customers that should buy power from a generator. This class are 1, the bulk trader, which is NBET, distribution company, and eligible customers. So from ab initio, the Act makes provision that eligible customers should be declared even before privatization. So that makes their force majeure notice. Yes, the force majeure notice somehow, I would have called it a nullity, because it's standing on illegality in my own view. Because the Act makes provision for it, that before even you hand over these power plants or the asset distribution network out, these are the 3 classes that should buy power from a generator. And so the fact that the minister or the government delayed to declare this particular class to buy power does not make it an illegal or untimely event.
You know, to be candid to you, the sector has, since the handover, it's not that all the problems we are seeing today, they have always been there. You know, from the weak distribution network, the highest loss level in the world. Nigeria is one of the countries that has the highest loss level. In other words, if you give distribution companies 100 units of energy, they can only account for 50% or less.
All right, now you heard and saw some of the fireworks yesterday from our conversation on the first part of the notice of force majeure issued by DISCOs, that's the electricity distribution companies, to NEC. Now, we still have 2 of the guests who were here with us on the conversation yesterday. They are still joining us today. One, of course, will be joining us from Ibadan. The other is right here with us in the studios. And that's Dr. Joy Ogaji, who is the CEO of Association of Power Generating Companies. That's the GENCOs. So, Dr. Ogaji, once again, a pleasure to have you join us on the program.
Thank you so much, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right. And also here with us in the Abuja studios, he's been here when we first took on issues in the power sector. This was some weeks ago. The former managing director and CEO of the electricity bulk trader, that's NBET, Mr. Rumudaka Wanodi. Mr. Wanodi, a pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay.
All right, also joining us on this discussion this morning is also in the studio here with us is Chudi Ojuku. He is the utility regulation specialist and electricity expert. He is a former project manager, electricity power reforms, and former director at the Nigerian Law School. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Also being joined from our Ibadan Network Center, just as Kingsley indicated earlier, we're being joined by Sunday Oduton. He joined us yesterday. He's a spokesperson of the Association of Nigerian Electricity Distribution Company. It's a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria again today.
Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Well, Mr. Odutuan, thank you very much. Yesterday you were with us at our Victoria Land Studios in Lagos. Today you are in Ibadan. Thanks a lot. We hope you were able to make a detour at Abeokuta and then stop by at the other room as you promised to do yesterday morning. All right, gentlemen, let's turn on the lights now and begin the conversation. Well, two of the discussants with us, as we indicated, and we of course have two new guests who are also very familiar with issues in the power sector. Let's get the views first of the two new guests who were not part of the conversation yesterday. Beginning first with Chief Ojukwu, Chudi Ojukwu. Now, the discos have given a notice of force majeure. Force majeure, of course, we also explained yesterday that the occurrence of an unforeseen circumstance that makes it difficult for a party or to a contract to fulfill their obligations, with the knock-on effect that all of that will have. Matters arising therefrom. The regulation that the minister has issued with regard to classifying certain persons as being eligible customers to buy power directly. What does all of this mean to you in terms of where we are with regard to restructuring our power sector or even making the power sector efficient?
Thank you very much. I'm of the opinion, though, that both parties are in a way not exactly right. The minister was wrong in declaring the eligible customer now. It was a clear misunderstanding of the Electricity Act and the policy. You don't read the act without reading the policy. The policy anticipated that there would be eligible customers, but it was supposed to be down the road. And it was supposed to be done in consultation with National Council on Privatization before such eligibility is declared. Many people read the act in isolation without any historical knowledge about the provisions that were put there. The NEC is supposed to produce a competition report every year, or more or less what you would describe as the status of the sector. NEC has never done that. So I don't know on what basis the minister decided that the sector needed more competition in order to declare eligibility. That said, it does not remove from the fact that there are problems in the entire value chain. The distribution companies need to update the equipment and so many other things that need to change to deliver power to Nigerians. These are not happening. Eligibility will not solve the fundamental issues of the sector. It does not add additional capacity and will not add any additional capacity to my knowledge. I also think that the distribution companies themselves are not in a position to declare eligible customers. The core investors can declare force majeure. The core investors can declare force majeure, but the distribution companies, nothing has changed for them to declare force majeure. The people who invested in them can declare force majeure and decide to pull out of the companies they bought. That is the true position regarding change in the regime that they were promised as against the one that is being implemented. I think that something, the policy, the eligibility policy is distracting. It does not, we are spending time now discussing about reducing the financial viability of a particular segment of the sector instead of how to reinforce the confidence that is needed to draw in more investments. This is the core of the issue. Whether you declare eligibility or not, the distribution companies remain the core of the power sector, which will attract more people to invest. Without their being viable, we are not going to make progress. So we should be thinking about how to build up their viability, build up their financial capacity to draw in people to invest, and not the distractions that this eligibility customer issue is bringing.
All right, thank you very much, Chief Ojukwu. Let's get the thoughts of Mr. Wonodi. You were not here yesterday. What's your thought on this force majeure that's just been declared?
I think, thank you very much. First and foremost, let me say that I follow the discussions, and I think it's very clear that the declaration of eligible customers is not an unforeseen issue. I think what we're hearing now is whether it's at the right time, right? So it's a matter of time. But if you look at the issues facing the sector right now, and I think Chudi talked about it, it's
financial viability of the sector. We have a funding issue. And what, in my mind, the eligibility does is that it finds a way to get some funding into the sector. Why is this declared? And the minister says these are the premises. First, you want to make sure that some stranded capacity could find some buyers that you can sell that to. Secondly, you also want to help the revenue of the generation companies, because at the same time, some people upstream of the discos have made investments and have taken loans and not able to perform. And you also have gas suppliers. So the eligibility is also to bring funding, use excess capacity, bring funding there, and then introduce some measure of competition in the industry. So the question is, are we ready for competition? Maybe not how the eligibility customers have been declared, but there is a scope for some form of competition within the industry. And if Sunday will be honest, I think that one of the things that is driving this declaration of the notice of force majeure is the fact that the discos are seeing that, yes, some customers who they've had, they could serve better, are now looking or might be looking for better service. They've had them as a monopoly. They could have served them very well. And even the last tariff that was put in place had a special tariff that would have allowed them, give them a better service at a higher tariff. It is for the discos. They needed to have taken advantage of that provision in the tariff. It wasn't there before now. So I think that, again, whether the time is right, I think there is a scope for declaration of eligibility customers. And my suggestion is that discos need to sit down and work with the regulator about it. The thing is still not there. There are still some other steps that need to be taken. You know, calculation of competition charge. We also need to see the distribution use of service fees. All those things have not been determined. Until you determine them, you cannot say specifically you're out of the pocket by this law. So I see it as a posturing for negotiation down the road. Wait until the process is gotten to the end, then you can now say that it's not fair. After all, they were all part of the consultation. They were part of it. That was the time they should have started screaming that, no, we don't want this, it's not right. But they participated. The outcome, maybe they think, is not favorable to them. But there are still some processes that need to be taken to get to the end, and then they can say they're out of pocket. So,
all right, Mr. Warren, thank you very much. Let's bring in Mr. Oduton right now from our Ibadan Network Studios. Mr. Oduton, of course, you listen to the comments of two guests with us here. Dr. Ogaji, of course, is still here from Genco, and she hasn't said anything. What's your take on this? First, the point raised that, look, there was some consultation, and discos participated in those consultations. And secondly, this is not necessarily going to sound a death knell for discos, because there should be some scope for competition. And that you should have taken, as discos, taken advantage of a window for higher tariffs for some of your high-end, if you like, high-end maximum demand customers. And you never did that, and now you are crying foul.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria. Well, the discussion continues. We should continue to talk to Nigerians. But I think whatever we're going to talk about, we should be very sincere with Nigerians. Nigerians are the ones bearing the brunt of all these policy somersault, insincerity going on in the sector. Well, my good friend Chudi has spoken, and I think when you play it back, we can all listen to it, and I go 100% along with him, just as Sam Amadi did yesterday. My very good friend and brother, Rumo, well, I'll first of all have to permit me to go back to my very lovely Egba land. If a man in the neighborhood is trying to steal my wife, according to Rumo, from what he said now, I should wait until that man impregnates my wife before I shout. In Egba, we will shout from day one and say, it's my wife now. Look elsewhere and get somebody for the other room. Don't take my wife. So we have a right to say this thing now. And for those who are saying, go and sit down with the regulator, both the regulator, the federal government, and we, the operators, we already know the consequence or consequences of this action. So it's not as if something new or we are not aware of what we are trying to do. I said yesterday that we are playing politics with power. This is what we need to all look at. We can blow grammar. You know, we are bad people. We understand grammar, but we don't blow grammar anyhow. You can talk from now till next year. Let us walk the talk. What people want is power in their home. Until we give Nigerians electricity, we are just deceiving them. Number one, deceit. The electricity that we currently give to Nigerians, people should ask, what is the amount of buying electricity? How much are we selling this for? Rumu had been the MD of MBET. He should tell the world, if the electricity that is disclosed, the tariff that we currently have, if that tariff is cost reflective, and I don't want to use that Oyinbo cost reflective, if that tariff is the appropriate pricing of the product. If you are buying a product for 80 naira, 88 kobo, and you are being forced by law to sell the same thing for 31 naira, 58 kobo, what grammar are we speaking here? And now what you are doing is that a certain classes or class of customers who, in a way, provide a form of cross subsidy to the poor. And what you want to do now is to take them away. Once you do that, what you are doing is that you are going to make the poor people to suffer. Fellow Nigerians, if you are not very rich, be aware that what is going on now, they are going to make you to pay so much for electricity. And they are doing that because they want to take care of the rich at your own expense as the poor people. And this is the kind of thing they don't want us to say outside. The truth of the matter is that we are playing politics with this thing. The issue of whether the timing is right or not, I want all of us to take a stand. Shudi has made it very clear. I don't like the language used by my friend Rumu. Rumu, please say it. Is the timing right or not? Don't say it's a matter of whether or not it is wrong. It's enough of us sitting on the fence. Okay? We can either speak publicly or we go publicly and talk. I know my friend's view privately before now, but it's okay. All I'm saying is that let us speak the truth. Let us see how we can get electricity into Nigeria home. What we are doing here, we are not thinking about how we can increase the amount of electricity in our homes, how we can make the business viable. And I said it yesterday, if you are not happy, if anybody is not happy, or some people are not happy, or even the federal government, if they are not happy with the investors in the discourse, take the license from them now. I've said it, a wife and a husband is a mutual agreement for two people to get married. But if the husband is the one that is now going to live with the wife, but he has paid dowry, paid everything to the family to be the legal, legitimate husband, and the wife keeps saying, this husband is not good, he's not efficient in the other room, I don't like him, I don't want him, and the husband says, okay, let me go, give me my dowry. The man quickly now went to the door, locked the door. You can't go, you can't go. You have no right to go. Ejo, please, why can't you allow the man to go? If you don't want them, go to another set of investors. And I said it yesterday again, and I need to repeat this to Nigerians. Yola is today in the hand of the government. Let all supporters of government come out and tell us the achievement of Yola. How much is Yola collecting, and why are they not collecting enough? How much are they paying off to the market? How many meters have they installed? What happened to the Yola network? Area where Boko Haram is not affected. I know all of this. The truth of the matter is that the business as it is now for the disco is not viable. Instead of punishing one segment of the sector, we should do a holistic work to make it whole. And we should not be thinking too much about 2019 election. Election will come and go. If there's a need for you to make the product, the pricing of products appropriate, be bold enough to do it, let Nigerians know what you are doing. If you need to do something upstream at the gas supply end, do that, and let us have electricity. All of us sit here this morning, I don't know how many of you have light, there's no light in my own area in Abuja. So please, light is what we need, and we should not continue to pay politics. And for my brother that says we should stop crying foul, well, we may have to invite you and sit you down and give you documents and facts so that you can understand this sector better. I think those people, those of us in the media who report or discuss or take charge of present issues on the power sector, we need to be very aware of the facts and figures.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sunday Oduta. Quite a lot he's raised, and I know that as we go on the discussion, would actually, you know, begin to speak to some of the issues that he's raised. But then let's bring in Dr. Orji. Just yesterday, you were actually saying that the force majeure would actually liberate the GENCO. So how is this going to happen?
Thank you for your questions. But it's not the force majeure that will liberate the market.
Okay.
It's the declaration of eligibility.
Okay.
Now, like I said yesterday, the Act, both the policy, the net policy of 2001 and the Act of 2005 made provision for eligible customers.
Okay.
And the government, like I also said yesterday, government delayed to declare because the government, in his own wisdom, wanted to examine the performance of the market and see how the market is progressing. And 4 years after privatization, we are all consumers here. We've been complaining we're not getting supply. But on one end of the value chain, the generators are saying they are generating enough. This is the generation figure for November this year. Yesterday on national telly, I was called a liar who was paid to lie to Nigerians. And this is a fact. I want it published. I have enough copies. Please put it out for Nigerians to read. The same website where Odutan announced that people should go and check what actually generation is. If you see the blue line up there, shows power that is available. And that is between 7,000 and above. Anybody that can interpret this map or this graph. Then the red line shows what actually the network can take, whether distribution or transmission. What's important is that the generators have this power available. What is the system taking? Can you see the gap? It's about 3,000 megawatt difference. There's a disconnect. And as a generator, I have paid for gas. I have paid for O&M services. I have paid for other things to make this power available.
What is O&M?
Operation and maintenance of is part of the services that come together for power to be generated. Now, I have paid for all of this, paid for staff and everything, just as the discos claim they also pay for these services. And after bringing out this power, you are able to take just this, getting about 3,000 stranded on my account. Now, not only that, out of the 4,000 which I've given to you, you pay me 20% of that. How do I continue to run my business? The government has tried so many things to see how the discos will become very efficient. Today they give excuse of non-cost reflective tariff. Tomorrow is another story. It's been one story or the other. Two sectors were privatized. And giving you power, you are not able to sell it. You sell it, you say consumers are not paying. Government say, come. What can we do? Remember when the president came on board, he said Nigerians need to think outside the box. So eligibility is in adherence to the call of thinking outside the box, also provided in the Act. So the government thought about it and said, come, what is the best way to liberate this market from this blame game of, oh, today is this, tomorrow is that? And the government declared eligible customers. Now, MAN, if you are, I mentioned it yesterday, MAN has been complaining. Over 40%.
MAN is the Manufacturers
Association of Nigeria.
Yeah.
I've been complaining that over 40% of their revenue goes into just self-generation to be able to produce their. And most companies have shut down due to the power issue. And we have 3,000 megawatts stranded that these industries can use. You and I, if we're in clusters, can use. So the minister declaring it, I keep saying that it is very timely. It is one of those decisions that the government ought to have taken long ago to be able to liberate the market. There are so many investors who have invested in the generation and value chain. There are lenders, just as Rumo said, because he was a bulk trader. He looked through their books to be sure that everything was viable before they signed up to what we call the PPA, the Power Purchase Agreement between a GENCO and bulk trader. And as I mentioned yesterday, the government provided bulk trader as a buffer. But you don't need to worry, just put your power, we'll take it and pay 100%. How was NBEC not able to pay 100%? The same disco. They say there is no cost reflective tariff. Now, this morning I hear him saying 80 something naira, they buy it for 80 something naira, according to him. Yes. By NEC review is about 55 naira. So there's a disconnect. There possibly, I don't know what figures the discos are using to calculate theirs. Maybe they are calculating figures such as their inability to even go and collect money. You and I know most Nigerians have not been metered. At whose fault? Is it the minister, or is it the permanent secretary, or the minister, or the president? The issue of cost reflective tariff, if the government today review it, I always ask them whenever we are discussing in private, I said, see, if they give you 88 naira, go and collect. Can you collect? Now you said it's 31 naira that the government approved, and yet you complain that you can only collect 20% of the 31 naira. If they increase it to 88 naira or 100 naira as you want to collect, can you collect? Or will it be the same 20% of the 100 naira you are agitating for? First and foremost, put your house in order. Inefficiency is bedeviling their performance. Network, see, I am not here to attack persons, and yesterday I took exception to...
Just focus on the issue.
Yes, I took exception to be personally attacked yesterday as a liar. No, I needed to correct it.
You've spoken to that already.
Yes.
Focus on the issue, please.
What we need to look at here is, as a distribution company, they should probably come and publish on a monthly basis what improvement they've done on Network 1, Network 2. As a GENCO, generation company by company, they have it on their website, and I can produce it to any Nigerian who care to know. Transcorp has improved power. Right now, as I speak to you, Transcorp power has ramped up power from 450 to 701 megawatts from takeover. They also took over the same date as the discos. From the 20% you pay them, and we don't know how much you don't declare. So part of why the government declared this thing is for us to see better visibility to market funding as well. Now, this class of eligibility, have we ever asked how many percent they form? They're about 10%. So there's still about 90% of customers that the discos can focus, be efficient, and collect and improve their business.
All right.
And you know why? Yeah. Laziness wouldn't let it, because these are easy, as Rulu said, very easy to collect. These are companies. At the end of the money just enters your account while you are seated in your AC room.
All right, Dr. Joy Ogaje, thanks a lot. You're firing on all cylinders now. That's how many megawatts you are generating already in the studios. Thanks a lot. We'll come back to you. Let's bring in Dr. Chudi Ojukwu before we get one or the again. Dr. Chudi Ojukwu, of course, you listen to the issues have expanded with regard to why the government, the minister in this case, took that decision. What are your thoughts on this, and what intermediate steps would you have wished for, if any?
Well, I do agree that there are a heavy default in the system, and looking at it, yes, the eligibility, I don't think it's thinking out of the box at all. It is actually thinking inside the box. What the industry, or the design of the industry was, is that there will be competition to enter the market for generation. That's the only competition that is anticipated at this stage of development, not a competition for customers at the distribution end. That itself distorts the entire power sector reform, and it does not do it any good. I don't think that declaring eligibility will make the incomes of the generation companies any better than it is today. It will not solve the problem. They will still be owed. In fact, if you look at the regulations that have been made for eligibility, they can only sell excess capacity. How many of them have excess capacity to sell? So it does not help them. It does not solve the fundamental problems of the industry. Distribution companies also need to improve. They made commitments to improve their network. It is upsetting to hear that after takeover, a lot of them have not made those investments that they are required to make, and people talk about rejecting load. Those issues should not arise. They should have been dealt with by now, but you can't isolate it from the fact that government also failed in its own responsibility in providing efficient tariff or let's not use the word cost reflective tariff. You know, so the problems are not just from one end. It's not from just from the distribution companies. There are indolent distribution companies, no doubt. There should have been better metering, but that does not solve the entire loss system in the industry. It does not remove the problems of, you know, why the financial, you know, metrics of the system is so bad. So I think that on the whole, we lose sight of the fact when we isolate an issue and think it's a board that will solve you know, a medicine that will solve a problem that is quite bigger than it is. The representative of GENCOs showed a very beautiful graph about availability, which is true. But that issue is not just a problem of the distribution company. The transmission company can also not take that capacity. So it's not enough to say it is available. It is available and it's causing a problem because the entire value chain cannot evacuate it. The transmission network, if you look at the budget of TCN for this year, it's embarrassing. And is there any plan to ensure that that power gets from the generation to the distribution companies? Then, of course, if you look at the distribution network, what's the expansion plan? When will we be able to take all that power? So,
how do you, Chief Ojukwu, thanks
yes.
a lot. Well, very quickly, how do you respond to the issues raised by Joy Ogaji to the fact that the GENCOs are hamstrung financially because the DISCOs who are supposed to pay them can only collect 20% of the power that they agree to distribute?
It is destroying their business, no doubt. Yeah,
so,
you know,
therefore, we should continue to hang on to that?
No, but the solution is not to declare eligibility. Like I said, I don't see how eligibility improves their bottom line because they have contracted on the power purchase agreement to deliver power to the bulk trader. And the only capacity they are entitled to sell as eligible customers is extra capacity, which most of them don't have. So to say that eligibility opens the market, it's not true. It does not solve the problem. The generation companies will die if they continue to be paid at 20% of collection of the DISCOs. So we need to go and solve the root of the problem, not the appearance of the problem. Singing eligibility as if we have solved the problem. I can tell you that in 2 years' time, the same problem will still be here. So there's no need pretending that there's a solution. That is not a solution. It's far from the solution. It's only creating a distraction.
Yeah, right. Chief Ojukwu, thank you. Just before my colleague Rhoda comes in, Mr. Warner, you were CEO of the bulk trader, and the bulk trader, by conception, was supposed to act as a buffer between the GENCOs and the DISCOs, as it were. What has gone wrong, if any, with the bulk trader, or what has been the role, or what should be the role of the bulk trader in this semi-altercation between the GENCOs and DISCOs, with all kinds of fears about impending bankruptcy?
Well, let me say that the bulk trader was created to be a catalyst for investment, one, and to also provide assurance to generation companies that they will be paid under some circumstances. And at the same time, the bulk trader is also a load aggregator. So what it does as being a load aggregator is to make sure that whatever is produced, that each distribution company at least gets some bit of that. If not, if we were to leave it, generation companies might decide to just give their power to some distribution companies. Now, the idea of saying that it is there to guarantee payment to generation companies is not really for power generated, sold to distribution companies, and they could not pay for, right? It is in some certain instances where a generation company might be ready to supply power and is unable to get that power to the system, maybe because of transmission, maybe because of some political force majeure. It needs to be paid. The bulk trader will pay that and then wait for when the market recovers and then it can get money back, right? So it's not for it to go and then pay from its own pocket when distribution companies are willing to pay. But the truth of the matter is that the way the market is architected is that distribution companies would give the bulk trader an LC so that when they do not pay, he can call on that LC and then it will pay the generation companies. Even if it doesn't call on that LC, it can use its own money to pay and then find a way to collect it. The second part that it could play is where, for instance, it's buying power at 30 naira and then selling to distribution companies who should sell at, say, 40 naira, 45 naira, and the government, by its own wisdom, does not allow the tariff to go to where it should go to. I think it would be unfair to ask distribution companies to pay for that when the tariff is not reflective of the cost of their doing business, right? So I think that you can see what the government is doing right now, where it has put this 701 billion to use to cushion the market at a time when it really realizes that distribution companies are not getting fair tariff. Right? So there is an issue of cost-reflective tariffs or fair tariff that right now does not exist in the market. It has not taken care of the foreign exchange, it has not taken care of the inflation, and therefore it is difficult to think that distribution companies can pay in full. But there is something that I want to say about cost-reflective tariff, and it's tariff should have an outcome for operators. Distribution companies should have a minimum return on their investment for their operation. They should have some earnings, right? That is known to them. Generation companies should have some earnings. Transmission should have. They should know exactly what they earn from that. But consumers should also, and this is where the problem is for me, consumers should be able to tell that when they pay a certain amount of money, that they should expect a certain level of service. They should know on a day-to-day basis whether I'm going to get 8 hours or 10 hours. Because, and this is the problem, I think some discos need to do a lot more work in understanding their consumers, their customers. They need to know, understand their network. I don't think they've done enumeration. So when we talk about tariff, what tariff? Tariff based on what? Based on conjecture. So they need to do the work and come up with a tariff that is understandable. Every morning, if you go to Twitter, you will see most of the distribution companies saying, we received 500 megawatts across our area. What does that mean to Nigerians? You should be able to say, because we received 400 megawatts, people here would get 6 hours of electricity, 7 hours of electricity, and then you then know what the tariff works for you. The second part is that we also make provisions for capital investments in the tariff, which says that a certain amount of money is being put in the tariff, which when you collect, you're supposed to use that to expand your network, right? Now, we've been talking to NERC so that when distribution companies come up with their tariff, it should be project specific. There is nothing saying we're going to put 2 billion to enhance this. You should say, with 2 billion, we're going to build a new line from Gwagwalada to Zuba so that people can actually on a year-to-year basis go and look out for that project. Because you don't go to Ministry of Power and appropriate money to build roads.
Mr. Murphy, I'd like to just cut you here. We'll take a break. I know you want to speak to other issues, but now we'll take a break. And when we come back, I was also going to ask you on the impact of all of this on foreign investment in the power sector. But that will be after this break.
Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects and movements to the police and other security agencies.
The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Just before we went to the short break, Mr. Wanodi, that's the former CEO of NBET, was firing, as it were, on the issues that needed to have been taken into consideration, and in fact should be taken into consideration by all the players along the value chain. Mr. Wanodi, continue.
Yeah, so as I was saying, I think that there is a need for the tariff to be more transparent for consumers and for anybody who wants to track its performance. The tariff is like a budget, right? So if you make provisions for metering or for network enhancement that would lead to transformers, everything, when the tariff is being put out, consumers should know specific projects that the capex or that provision will fund. So the issue of metering, you know, so we have metering and it says 50,000 meters, but it does not say 10,000 meters on so and so streets in Kubwa, right? So that people can go to Kubwa. You know, there needs to be more transparency on the issue of this cost-reflective tariff, so that people know what it buys them in terms of level of service and specific identifiable projects that is undertaken. So that
the specific issue now of the notice of force majeure,
right,
and the trigger for that, namely the declaration of eligible customers. Chief Ojuku says that this is not likely to solve the problem, and Ogaji says, look, we are not being paid. We do not know what NBET is doing at this time. Where does this leave us in terms of, you know, the power sector? Is this going to move the power sector, as Nigerians will say? Is it going to move it forward? Is it going to freeze it? Or is it going to lead to retrogression?
Oh, well, there's no one silver bullet for the problems within the power sector. I think that this is a complementary policy to every other thing that is being done. Like I said, you know, one of the premises is that it would allow some stranded capacity to come out. Maybe for the big gencos, they have contracted capacity with the bulk trader, they might not have additional, but if you're in the generation business, you could undertake to, instead of ramping up the particular capacity here, you can make new investments, right? There are also people who have captive plants, who have plants within their industries that have oversized capacity for their own industry. They could decide to sell to their neighbors or who you have in the name of eligible customers. So it would help bring some additional power. It could, but let me go back to what I was saying before, and I say this, that these codes are still in a very good place to use this. Because at the end of the day, it's going to go through their network. And it might just be easier for you to sell to a disco who can sell at a higher tariff to a consumer. So the point I'm making is that, yes, they can raise this whole thing, they can bring, but any performing disco that, you know, knows its owners and can do well, this is not something to worry about. There are other things that they can deal with, issue of how the government can provide a tariff that is better for the industry or reflects the cost of doing business. But at the same time, like I keep saying, the discos need to also do some work in helping that tariff get to a place where it is efficient and is affordable. I'm not saying where it's free. It's affordable in the sense that if you look at so many of the discos, for instance, Sunday talked about some discos having about 62% of their load on residential class 2, which means that there's cross subsidy. You know, we have always said it, that there's no way you should have cross subsidy of more than 5% of your load. And who is R2 tariff? R2 tariff is someone who lives, you know, it could be in Maitama, it could be in Ikoyi, the fact that he's in a single family home and takes power from 11 kV or 415. So you find out that he's really not a person that you should actually be cross-subsidizing, right? So they need to restructure that tariff, the elements of it, the classification of customers, and to the point where you can actually eliminate or limit that cross-subsidy that you expect. There's nowhere in the world where you cross-subsidize 60% of the people within the market. So,
all right, Mr. Wanodi, thank you very much. We'll get back to you in the course of this discussion. Let's bring in Dr. Oji. Dr. Ogaji, with all of these issues with Gencos and Discos, one begins to wonder, what impact does this have on having private investors invest in the power sector?
Thank you so much. That's a very good question. Like I mentioned yesterday, I actually spoke to it yesterday. The lack of the illiquidity in the sector has actually hampered new investors coming in. Mm-hmm. As we all know, Mr. Odutan mentioned, or Chief Odutan mentioned yesterday also, that we are bragging about 7,000 and in Nigeria we can even do more. Yes, how do we do more? When the people who are on ground are only getting 20% of their business, of what they are putting out. So new investors are afraid of coming in. They are afraid. You are dealing with a distribution company who says it collects 20%. Now you said it's only 20% you can collect. Okay, the government said let's liberate the market and reduce your debt burden by taking out some class who can pay directly to the Genco and improve confidence of investors who now know that, oh, at least I can get 20-30% of my investment from another class, not just depending on this rigmarole of 4 years of this is not right, this is not right, this is right, this is not right. So investors, this as Chief Ojuku mentioned, and my former lecturer, I'm glad to be in the studio with him, mentioned the eligible customers for us Gencos is not our final solution. Like I said it is one of the steps. One. If as Mr. Chief Sunday had always used the other room and his place, if as a akara seller I sell 100 akara and you're giving me 20 each time, and then there's another customer who says, see, if you supply me as well together with the other one, I will pay you 40%. Will I fold my hands? I want to exploit. So as Gencos, we want to explore the eligibility. I know that the Discos love us, but let them leave us to exploit. And when we fail, we will come out and apologize to Nigerians that we were wrong.
Dr. Ogaji, yesterday, one of the issues that came up had to do with load rejection.
Correct.
Mr. Oduton indicated that, look, they reject load when the Gencos supply the load at locations where they don't need them. They say, look, give me, according to him, they say, look, I need the load in Sokoto, you are giving it to him in Kano, or he needs it in Kano, you are supplying it to him in Sokoto. And that, of course, almost invariably also affects their collection. What's your response to that?
Thank you for that question. Load rejection. I'm glad that recently, in recent times, the Discos have agreed, have started admitting that they reject load. If you've been following the media, you know they've always dismissed it. There is nothing like load rejection. It's just one phenomenon that somebody has just fabricated. But I'm glad, even yesterday I heard with my ear that he admitted that if he wanted power in Kano and you give him in Sokoto, he will reject it. I think Mr. Rumo may also want to chime in this part in terms of how the classification of customers, how the tariff was brought about. It is a weighted average. The big paying ones, the not so paying ones, and then they got an average and gave you a tariff. Now, when you start picking and choosing, give me on this side, because these ones you have noticed can pay you more. What I think will happen is over-recovery, because it's an average that was given to you. So now when you now focus on those high-paying ones alone, you end up over-recovering. You're not getting the average of what the sector expected you to get. You are getting from the high-paying ones at the expense of the low-paying ones. That's one. Two, another philosophy which they canvass is that the reason why they are not supplying to Sokoto is that Sokoto inhabitants, I'm sorry, I'm just using it as an analogy. I'm not saying Sokoto residents don't pay, but it's just for purposes of example. So if Sokoto residents are not paying and as a result you're bypassing them, remember NEPA was here and we say NEPA was not able to collect money and not. You came, what's the purpose of coming with a proposal that I can do better than who is there? And you have heard that JRO and everybody, they said NEPA, they have facts and figures to show you that NEPA was making better collection and better remittance than the current disco. So what's the essence of government privatizing? If the same excuse that NEPA gave, PACN gave, is the same excuse and even worst excuses you're giving for not able to perform, is there any reason for the privatization? There is a question mark.
Okay, Dr. Ogaji, we will come back to you. Let's go to Mr. Sunday Oduton. Mr. Sunday Oduton, Dr. Ogaji said that this classified or eligible customers we're talking about is just about 10% of the market, and so you still have 90%. So what is the big deal about that? And also, I know you want to speak to the issue of load rejection, but then Mr. Chudi also said that you need to actually reclassify your customers. So what do you have to say to this? Reclassifying your customers, the fact that the eligible voters are just about eligible, customers are just about 10%, and you still have about 90%.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm not going to join issues with Joy Ogaji, because I know the wonderful and more sensible opinion of our employers. Majority of the GenCode owners, we do meet with them, and I know their opinion. So I'm not going to go down and join issue with my sister, because that's. But let me start with the chart that she showed you earlier on. It's important that we deal with this issue. And I think a time has to come when all stakeholders should be invited to a forum, not a 1 hour, 2 hour TV program. A whole day thing, call all stakeholders, everybody should come with facts and figures, show what they are doing, so that we can get this thing right. First, the chart. I said yesterday, I said actual energy sent out is what we should measure, not available. I also said yesterday that in Nigeria we celebrate failure. We celebrate failure a lot, in all ways and in all facets of our society. And I'm sorry to say, I'll still say something again about even where I am now. Now, the available, I said that TCN conducted a stress test, which shows that the DISCO currently can take 6,288 megawatts of electricity. That's the available, that's the current distribution capacity of the DISCO. TCN belongs to the federal government, so that is there, the record is there. I'm waiting for anybody to say it is not so. That's one. Number two, Joy has been talking, it's like GenCode, DISCO, GenCode, DISCO. There is transmission. I'm happy Trudy have mentioned that. I'm in Ibadan, and I will use the example of where I am. I'm talking to you right now from Ibadan City, southwest Nigeria. There is a transmission station called Ayede, an area called Ayede Transmission Station, here in Ibadan. Transmission Company of Nigeria take electricity through Ayede, from Ayede to Shagamu in Ogun State. Up to today, for more than 6 years, there is a serious problem called underconductor, whereby even when there is availability of electricity, they cannot take enough along that corridor to Shagamu. And Shagamu serves Ijebu-Ode, Ijebu-Igbo, Agawole, Odogbolu, the whole of Ogun East Central District in Ogun State. And because of that transmission constraint and limitation, when I want certain quantum of energy in Shagamu and in the environment, I cannot get it. Instead of taking it there, they now take it to Odolowe or another neighborhood in Ibadan with perpetual people who are perpetual debt or who are not paying. And you are saying that I should deprive the people in Shagamu or the other people in Ijebu-Ode, and then you dump it where I don't need it. That's what we are talking about. You can link that to load rejection, that's one. You can also look at the issue of constraint. I also mentioned Ayobo Itaja, Lagos, Ikeja West. That is where my own city, Abuja, get its light from. Along the corridor of Lagos, old Lagos Abuja Road, through Eweko Cement Factory, into Abuja Ojere Transmission Station. I have to even thank federal government, the federal government now. This regime has been able to commence an activity whereby the 3 transformers, 30 MVA, 2 of them are now being upgraded to 60 MVA. That's commendable. It has taken more than 6-7 years to even get that done, but that's going on now. But even at that, what we're saying is that when there is transmission constraint all over, in Benin, in Kano, when you have all of that, in Enugu, the problem with that is that we will not have electricity in some areas when and as required, and then the transmission company of Nigeria will attempt to dump it elsewhere. I don't know whether Joy is speaking for the transmission. I've never mentioned or accused GENCOs of dumping. GENCOs are not the transporters. GENCOs are the producers of electricity, which you understand the value chain. GENCO produces, transmission company of Nigeria is the transporter, DISCOs are the distributors. So, and I've said it again, that instead of all this naming, blaming and claiming, I'm still saying that instead of celebrating failure, we should all see that we have all failed. All of us, GENCO, DISCO, transmission, and the federal government as the father of all the failures in the sector. We have failed Nigerian because while South Africa is not even celebrating 41,000 megawatts, we are talking about 7,000, 13,000, 14,000. And now we are talking as if it's a rocket science that it is not possible to be done. This thing is possible, but why we are not having light is because those of us in the sector, all of us stakeholders, we have refused to put Nigeria first. We have refused to sit down and work out the problem. What we do is to punish one at the expense of the other. One person will move to the one side. Instead of doing all of that, which is what I call the politics of power.
All right. Sonny Oduton, thank you very much. We'll come back to you later on in the conversation to get your closing thoughts. Just to bring in again Chief Chudi Ojukwu. Chief Ojukwu, now, you talked about dealing with, as it were, the apparent symptoms of the challenges of the power sector, whereas there are more deep-seated issues. Would you locate those deep-seated issues in matters pertaining either to the privatization or post-privatization matters? And if so, what are those issues and how do you think they can be handled?
Well, a lot of the issues are post-privatization. You know, we've gotten to the point where the sector was privatized, but there were things that needed to be dealt with. You know, it's an ongoing sector. Government made commitments at the point of privatization which they were unable to keep, and this has been a slippery slope. You hear people talking about the tariff issues. We have not allowed the proper pricing of the product, and then government also made commitments about subsidy to this sector, which it has not kept. You know, we can't expect the product to be produced at a certain price and sold at lower than that price and expect people to come in and invest. It's not difficult to understand why a DISCO will not make an investment if it cannot see where it will recover its money from. You know, so these problems are endemic, and government has also not shown the political will to drive the power sector to where it should be. We keep saying power is important, and our budgeting system does not reflect it. We are not putting enough money into the power sector. We are not putting enough money into transmission. We are only talking and not doing. You know, and I hear a lot of these sentiments about who is responsible, who is not responsible. Is it the distribution company? Is it the transmission company? Is it generation company? Like a lot of people have come to agree. The problem is pervasive. It goes around, you know, every other part of the sector. What we need to do, I say this always, is to depoliticize power. We cannot continue to use political decisions to drive reform in the power sector. A lot of the decisions that are being taken are political. They don't, you know, when we want to change tariff, we worry about the election cycle. When we want to declaration of eligible customers, I think it was a political stunt as far as I'm concerned. It had no value. Without declaring eligible customers, people who want to do generation business can contract with any person they wanted to contract with. So it is not declaring eligible customer that will solve the problem. For the GENCOs that are existing, their problem is not eligibility, because their capacity is contracted, and I insist they can't break their contracts. So we need to understand why they are not getting money they should get, and it will not incentivize anybody if he comes to invest in Nigeria and sees that the performance rate of the major contractors for the power, that's the distribution companies, is 20%. Nobody will come. It does not matter whether we have small capacities of 1 megawatt here, 5 megawatt that somebody contracted with somebody separately and he's paying him. It is important to make the sector robust so that people will see, when you want to get an impact of the power sector, you go to the market and see what's the market doing. You don't go to individuals that have contracted privately and say, what are they doing? That will not give you a reflection, and that will not attract any investment. So we need to address what the problem is. The problem is not about eligibility. You can't introduce competition into distribution now. That is wrong-ended. It does not serve any purpose. It does not change the dynamics of the sector. Government should subsidize the power sector. It must realize that it has an obligation to subsidize the sector. And we cannot not invest money and expect results. The transmission company needs to be given money to build a network. It is not giving 1 billion or 2 billion and we'll be celebrating. It should by now have had a 15 megawatt capacity to transmit at the minimum. All
right, Chief Ojukwu, yeah. Thank you very much. It probably is an unfair question to pose to Wanode, because you were also in that loop. Do we have a clear sense now of the, shall we say, the governance structure of the power sector? This is because you are supposed to have at the apex the Ministry of Power in terms of policy. You are supposed to also have the regulator, and then you have the players, including the GENCOs, NBET, TCN, and the DISCOs. And at some point, you know, in the past, in recent past, we had a presidential task team on the power sector. But now, some of our guests speaking yesterday said that there would now appear to be a conflation between the functions of NEC and then the policy platform from the ministry. What, do we have a sense now of the governance structure?
Well, I think that clearly we know what it should be. Is it what it is now? Not quite. I think that part of the power sector recovery plan, there are some requirements that were there which people in the market have been looking at, and it's not there. So you have board of MBET is not in place. You have the chairman of NEC is missing. It's not. I mean, so you have things that work, but it is not fully in place. The TCN has should have a management contract, or is it gone back to government? We do not know. There is no board for TCN. So there are some governance gaps within the market and within the leadership of the industry that is missing.
So does that now fully account for the fact that there needs to be a review of the privatization policy?
I don't think that one needs to go back and start reviewing the privatization policy, but you know, we have to look at the implementation. Has been implemented. That's why.
All right.
you need to.
Let me. I'll get back to you on that. But then let's Dr. Joe Ogaji come in here. Is there a need for us to review the privatization policy, or is just an implementation issue?
Rhoda, in addition to that, to whom do the players report, or to whom do the players complain? How you are all playing the field now? What are the rules, and who is the umpire?
Thank you for the two questions. The question on should the privatization policy be reviewed, I will say no. The privatization policy, whether the net policy as well as the extra, is as good as possible. I think it covers pretty much everything. The problem we have in the power sector is, in fact, it's not just in the power sector, it's a Nigerian thing. Implementation, enforcement is always a problem. During my master's degree, I did, and my research was on to know if Nigerians have enough environmental law to cover the issues of the Niger Delta and other issues that are bedeviling us. And it will interest Nigerians to know that Nigerians Nigeria has more laws, more policies, more regulation than any other country on the environment. The problem I found out in my thesis was implementation and enforcement. And in recent times, many Nigerians have mentioned that in different areas, in health, implementation, enforcement. So if, as truly as Chief Ojukwu said, if truly Nigeria or the current administration thinks that power is number one for them, then there should be a strong political will to implement the terms of the contract. These operators signed contracts. Like as Rumo mentioned, or I think was Chief Ojukwu, when tariffs will be increased, you will get a call from the villa, don't increase. When this wants to be done, no, don't do it. You know, this is a contract market. And if Nigerians, we have sanctity of contract, then we should allow the market to run. It's a privatized market.
Yeah, but then if you allow it to run, there also has to be a regulator.
Yes. Now, I was answering the first part of the question. Now I come to the second part of your question, which is whether we have, if I interpret it very well, do we have a leadership in the power sector?
That you can report to, because all of you are playing on the field now.
Yes. In a privatized entity such as ours, the regulator, NEC, stands as the umpire. He makes the rule, calls the shots and everything. And NEC reports to the National Assembly that set it up, because it's an act of parliament. And they ought to be monitoring if NEC is performing according to the terms of his call. The question now is NEC performing? And you heard yesterday that the NEC, the minister is performing the role of NEC. That is yet to be confirmed. It was asserted yesterday. And truly, I think you need to call NEC to ask why, if a Genco is not meeting up the terms of this license or contract, what have you done? What are you doing?
We invited NEC, they are not here.
They're not here, that's true.
Same yesterday.
So there is a bit of, as Chino Achebe would say, things are falling apart in the power sector. Prior to this time, there were some, as you mentioned, the presidential team that monitored the sector, had information about every unit of the value chain. They can track the transmission, if transmission is performing, distribution is performing, and all the rest. And that team has concluded their work and left. There is a vacuum of who monitors who. By the act, BP and NEC ought to monitor the sector. But I think you need to call them back to find out the terms of their monitoring, the template with which they are monitoring the sector, the outcome of their monitoring, and the enforcement plan, year by year, or quarterly. Nigerians will know if we have leadership.
Dr. Daddy, thank you very much. Let's get to Mr. Chief Oduton, who is in Ibadan Network Center. Very quickly, we're out of time. What is the way forward for the power sector? What would be your suggestion?
Well, thank you very much. I expect you to also allow me to respond to the issue of who reports to who and those things. Maybe because I'm not with you in Abuja. Now, it is time for NEC to be independent. The current NEC is not independent at all. NEC, as the regulator, are expected to do their job. They should do their job, and they should be seen to be doing their job. NEC alone can easily see even where we discos are not doing what we should be doing, and we should be sanctioned. Our members should be dealt with if they are not doing what they should be doing. Now, I'm currently in Ibadan because the House Representative Committee on Power, led by their chairman, Honorable Dan Asiko, they are on oversight function to Ibadan. They saw for themselves yesterday the admiration being done by Ibadan Disco, Dito, Bini, Kano, Kaduna, Enugu, and they've gone, in fact, they've gone to 8 of the discos. They are now in Ibadan. This is the 9th, remaining Jos and Yola. You can invite the chairman of the House Committee on Power to come to your studio, tell Nigerians what they have seen in the course of their going around, including facility and things that we have done in terms of improvements in the network. But you cannot continue to buy a product for 88 kobo, and you are being forced to sell it for 31 naira 50 kobo. And let me quickly mention something on metering. It is in our interest to meet our customers. But the experts who are here also know that there is an allowable capex that is built into the tariff for the sake of cost recovery. In the case of one disco, a disco was allowed to spend only 20 billion naira, all capital expenditure, metering, network upgrade, all of those capital expenditure. For metering alone, that disco requires 32 billion. How can that be possible? And to the issue of me as a disco, not paying 100% to my sister, Madam Jenko. If I'm buying a product for 88 naira, and I'm only allowed to sell the same product for 31 naira 58 kobo, from day one, before I even pay staff salary, before I even collect, I'm short. The shortfall in the sector as at the end of August 2017 is 892 billion naira. The shortfall in the sector today every month is 27 billion naira. And we keep on celebrating failure as a nation. I'm ashamed. And I don't know why, if others have conscience, whether they are happy at what we are doing in the sector. And part of the problem, I've said it again, I've said it before, all of us involved in this sector, I'm not talking about Rumu, my brother, or Chudio, all of us that are involved, from the minister down to everybody involved, stop us from using generator in our homes. If I'm sweating in my home, I will know who to call. I will begin to look for solutions. We sit down in the comfort of our home, we blow grammar. We are just deceiving Nigerians. Let us do what is right. And for NTA, as a last shot, may I beg you, because I've been saying this privately, this is time now to bring it public. NTA Director General, please, do something about your appalling studio in Ibadan. It's a shame for Nigeria to have NTA Ibadan. Before this 1989, 79, and very poor cameras there. And we are saying we want good Nigeria. How can we get good Nigeria? I don't want us to talk about it. Somebody somewhere needs to do something. If you have given money to anybody to do it, and they are not doing it, come to Ibadan. Your studio is appalling. Go to Benin, same thing. And I'm not impressed with your Lagos studio either. I've been to those three. And I've complained privately. Nobody is doing anything. NTA Director General, please help Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Sunday Odutong. I think the relevant authorities have heard you this morning, and thank you for coming on the program. We also we would like to thank you so much. You joined us yesterday, and you also joined us today. Thank you very much, Mr. Sunday Odutong. He's a spokesperson, Association of Nigerian Electricity Distribution. Thank you very much for coming. I want to thank. I also want to thank Dr. Joy Ogaji. She is the CEO, Association of Power Generation Companies. That's the GENCOs. Thank you for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
You're welcome.
We also want to thank Chief Chudi Ojukwu. Chief Chudi Ojukwu is the Utility Regulation Specialist and Electricity Expert. Thank you for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
Rumundaka Wonodi is a former MD and CEO of Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading. Thank you for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. Seems it's an issue we would never, Kingsley, exhaust. And
that's right. Well, we've had two-part conversations on this now, but I think obviously, I mean, from the tweets that we have received, some of them which we uploaded in the course of the conversation, our viewers saw that the matters, of course, have sufficiently been crystallized from our perspectives. We'd like to thank all our guests who were with us yesterday and also today for focusing on the issues and making suggestions as to how we can proceed. Ultimately, what Nigerians need is light.
Power. Yeah.
All right, so that does it for our discussion segment. Let's go over now to our sports desk.